Good morning, everyone. Mr. R.K. Singh, Union Minister of Power and New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Hiroshi Suzuki, Ambassador of Japan to India. Arun Puri, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of the India Today Group. Distinguished speakers and friends. I am delighted to welcome you to the second India Today Japan Conclave. And we are honored that Mr. Singh is delivering the keynote address. Mr. Singh has many avatars. He was one of India's most seasoned bureaucrats and a former Union Home Secretary. Then he became a politician and has won twice from Bihar as an elected Lok Sabha member, one in 2014 and the other in 2019 from Ara in Bihar. I hope I pronounced that right. And then he became a Union Minister in 2017, handling the Power and Renewable Energy Ministry and also later the portfolio of skill development for 2 years. He's highly respected for his performance. So let's give the minister a very warm round of applause. Mr. Singh, as my colleague was mentioning, this is India Today's second India-Japan conclave. Last year we held it, celebrating 70 years of India-Japan partnership and ties. And in the second conclave, we hope to move the ball considerably forward, whether it's in geopolitics, commerce, and industry, energy, which you handle, high technology, and culture. Just to give you a little background, bilateral trade between India and Japan is close to $22 billion, but experts feel that it hasn't lived up to its potential. I hope the ambassador agrees with me. There's a lot more to be done. India was Japan's 18th largest trading partner, while Japan was India's 13th largest trading partner. In terms of investment, Japan is the 5th largest FDI investor with a cumulative investment of close to $39 billion in the last 20 years. There are something like 4,900 business establishments in India with in terms of Indian companies in Japan, over 100 of them. Last year, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged that Japan would invest $42 billion in India for the next 5 years. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi summed up his vision of this relationship with the 3 Ps, progress, prosperity, and partnership. The endeavor is that by 2030, both these countries would become in the top 10 trading partners with each other, rather than behind that. So in this seminar, we're going to look at 5 key areas. Geopolitics, of course, because of the global disorder, but the fact that India and Japan have got closer, whether it's the Quad, whether the Indo-Pacific interest that we have, keeping it open. I'm going quickly. Then, of course, the second is infrastructure with transport, which my colleague mentioned. The third is the high-tech region and semiconductors, and where we can collaborate. Japan is good at hardware. We're great at software, but we are combining our forces on that. The power of 2. The fourth is supply chain resilience. And the fifth is the area that you are looking at, Mr. Singh, which is clean energy cooperation. And just last year, India-Japan signed this major clean energy partnership that looked to expand the relations. There has been an energy dialogue since 2007, but this is a quantum leap, and this is where the big opportunity lies. So, Mr. Singh, you very kindly agreed to begin with a fireside chat. Let's look at the clean energy partnership. Where are the areas you think India could benefit, particularly if you're looking at hydrogen? Japan has advanced research on that. Which are the key areas you would be focusing as minister, given the fact that we've entered into this clean energy partnership?
Raj, what we have done is that we have become a world leader insofar as renewables are concerned. Our total non-fossil capacity today is 186,000 megawatts, 186 gigawatts. And I have 99 gigawatts under construction. So we were the first country to achieve its NDCs in terms of adding renewables. We had pledged that we'll have 40% of our capacity coming from non-fossils by 2030. We reached that target in 2021. And we are the fastest growing, outside of China, the fastest growing renewable energy capacity in the world. And we've emerged as the favorite destination for investments. Whatever capacity is being added through open bids. And all those bids are hotly contested. Every major company in the world, or every major fund in the world is invested here through different companies. So investments are coming. All my capacities, I haven't had to invest a single paisa. Now, so I see this as a great opportunity for the Japanese companies to also come and compete. It's a very competitive field. Bloomberg categorized us as the most attractive market for renewables, for investment in renewables. That's what Bloomberg categorized us as. So we are growing, and I would tell the ambassador that this is a great opportunity for the Japanese companies also to come and compete. We are also setting up manufacturing capacities. We came out, we had about 20 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity of cells and modules. We came out with a production-linked incentive. As a result of that, we have now about 48,000 megawatts of manufacturing capacity, right from polysilicon to modules, the whole value chain being set up in India. So the Japanese companies can participate in that also. On green hydrogen, again, we have emerged as one of the biggest manufacturers in the world. I mean, that's no hyperbole. We have 7.8 million tons of green hydrogen manufacturing capacity at different stages. So we shall be the biggest manufacturers of green hydrogen and green ammonia in the world. And our prices will be the most competitive because our renewable energy prices are the most competitive. My renewable energy price is about setting up a capacity, 1 megawatt capacity of solar costs you about $600,000. That's the cheapest in the world, anywhere in the world. And we have a huge and a robust grid capable of transferring 116,000 megawatts from one corner of the country to another. So we put the infrastructure in place. So this is the place to come and invest. Please do. And if Japan will be looking for a lot of green hydrogen and green ammonia, they won't get it cheaper than anywhere, from us. So we should be the preferred, country from which they buy green hydrogen and green ammonia. And our developers, they are sort of tying up orders all around the world. I think they have been in conversation with Japanese companies also. We are in agreement. We are discussing agreement under the UNFCCC, clause 6.2, for the sort of trade in green hydrogen and green ammonia. So I believe that agreement is near finalization. Once that happens, then what will happen is that we've also said that those countries or those companies which buy green hydrogen, green ammonia from us will be agreeable for giving them a part of the carbon credits. So that agreement, once it happens, that will also facilitate Japan getting carbon credits. We are in a good place, and our economy is surging, our demand is surging, so it will keep growing at 7% for the next 2-3 decades. So I am quite sure that your companies will be interested. And we have the technology. So this manufacturing capacities which are being set up, and they are being set up by countries which have got into partnerships with countries around the world. And the modules, etc., which are going to be manufactured are going to be one of the most advanced modules with efficiencies plus 24% plus, which is fairly good.
Mr. Singh, as we all understand that Prime Minister is on his way to Dubai, and he'll be attending the COP28 discussion soon, and you will be joining the COP28 delegation sooner. Sir, I wanted to understand from you that you have given us a roadmap that India will be adding 80 gigawatts of thermal and coal-based, especially capacities. There is a global pressure on India to cut down the coal and phase down the coal and coal-based capacity. We also understand that Prime Minister and you and Environment Minister is making this plea that India is into a developing phase and they require the thermal capacities. But that also requires a cleaner coal combustion and cleaner process. So how are you placing things? And I'm sure many of the Japanese investors, they are looking at the efforts you are making. So can you help us in understanding this?
And just a quick to make the problem so urgent, we know that Delhi has had the worst month in terms of air quality index, one of the worst polluting things. So what is being done as well when you look at it and the urgency for that from our side?
Okay, the 2-3 questions rolled into one. One is about the pressure on coal. Now, let me tell you that there can't be any pressure on us. Why? Because the rate of our energy transition is one of the fastest in the world. Our per capita emissions are 1/3 of the global average. The whole battle which the world is waging, that battle is about reducing emissions. Now, my emissions are 2.19 tons per capita per year. The global average is about 6 tons, 6.8 tons per capita per year. So, who has to reduce emissions? Tell me that. The discussion has to be about reducing emissions. How I do it is my business, but my per capita emissions are already very low. It's for the developed countries whose per capita emissions are 2 times, 3 times the global average to bring down their emissions. Now that is what this discussion in COP has to be about. About who is emitting at the highest rates, and those countries will need to bring down their emissions fast. Now, it is high time that the developed world and the world as one attack this central problem, which is that of emissions. Where the emissions come from, whether they come from petroleum, whether they come from coal, whether they come from gas, is irrelevant. I may be burning 1 kilogram of coal and emitting X, and somebody may be burning the 100 liters of diesel and emitting 3x. The question is, how much is he emitting? Because what is causing the global rise in temperature is the emissions. That is the main thing. And our emissions are one of the lowest in the world. So nobody sort of can pressurize us. And basically our attempt always has been to bring back the focus on where it should be, and that is emissions reduction. And those who are emitting at the highest rate need to reduce their emissions first. The overall situation is what? The overall situation is that if you want to limit the global rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees, the available carbon space left is just 250 gigatons. That's it. And the world is emitting at the rate of 53 gigatons a year. Now that gives us 5 years at this rate. That gives us just 5 years. Now if you want to remain below that limit, then on an average, the global citizen should not be emitting more than 6 tons per year. We are emitting only 2.19. But there are countries whose citizens, where the per capita emissions are 12, 13, 20, 21. They need to bring down their emissions quickly. The emissions have to be brought down to 6 gigatons, 6 tons per capita per year within 5 years, as soon as possible. And of course, the developing countries need space to develop. So the developed countries have to bring down their emissions much faster. So the discussion is not about coal. That is a diversion. It's a dangerous diversion, adopted by some developed countries to, shift the focus away from their emissions. It doesn't matter where the emissions coming from. So don't get diverted by that. I don't get diverted by it. And I tell all my negotiators that don't get diverted by it. I wrote a paper on it and gave it to my negotiators that make sure that you don't get diverted by this. So that's a diversionary tactic, that discussion on coal. Now, yes, I'm adding 80 gigawatts of coal. Why? Because my demand is growing. That's great news. My demand is growing, it grew at 20%. Can you imagine? This huge country, my established capacity is 415,000 megawatts. That's my established capacity. And my demand grew at 20% in August, September, October. In the first half of November, it grew at 8%. Now, I am going to be, why did it grow? It grew for 2 reasons. One, because our economy is booming, and that's great. The surest indication of a booming economy is what? A rise in consumption of electricity, a rise in consumption of energy. So this is the surest sign of a booming economy. And the other, of course, is that we connected 29 million homes, achieving universal access in what the International Energy Agency called the fastest and the largest expansion of access ever in the history of the world. So 2 reasons. And I aim to meet that. I'm not going to compromise on that. I aim to meet that demand. And I shall meet it. And the growth will not stumble or stagger for want of energy. Be very clear in mind. I am very clear in my mind. So if it requires adding 80, it required adding 80 gigawatts, so I am adding 80 gigawatts. But still, despite this, the thermal capacity, the share of thermal capacity in my current portfolio, which is right now for about 57%, will come down to 35% by 2030 because I am adding renewables at a faster pace. Imagine 186 gigawatts established and 99 gigawatts. Gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. 99,000 megawatts under installation. By 2030, I'll have 65% of my capacity from non-fossils. And I'll still be the lowest emitter in the world. So thank you. Yeah.
I just, one additional question.
Yeah.
When we're talking about, fair enough, India does need thermal power to meet its requirements. We are one of the lowest per capita things. The concern is that many of these thermal plants are around cities like Delhi.
And last question, yeah.
Yes, and why can't we, for instance, both clean coal technology as well as flue gas emissions,
Agreed.
can we control it?
Agreed. That last point I missed out.
Yeah.
You see, that environment. Now, we are concerned about the environment. Now, we have environmental standards. Any thermal power plant which does not conform to the environmental standards are shut down without any compunction. They have to meet the environmental standards. And basically, the world talks about unabated coal capacity. All my coal capacity is abated. It has mechanisms for absorbing or harmful emissions, and we are adding to that. Now, we are adding to that at an expense of almost about 50 lakhs per megawatt, or 50 to 60 lakhs per megawatt. So, we are adding to our emission control mechanism. So, by and large, in fact, I commissioned a survey by IIT Delhi to look at the pollutions in the vicinity of the thermal power plants. And the pollution in the vicinity of thermal power plants was no different from the pollution elsewhere. That's how good our abatement is. That survey is still on. And Raj, I will share it with you. I will share the findings.
Some water for you.
I will share the findings with you.
Pani de Sak.
Yeah. Thanks.
Please.
That is the remnant of.
Yeah, I know. All of us are suffering, and let's blame it on pollution.
I had gone to the northeast,
Okay.
so I caught a cold.
But just to pursue without, there was a commitment in the national capital region that out of the 11 thermal power plants, they would all move towards the flue gas disposals that would bring the sulfur emissions and nitrogen things down. A recent survey showed only 2 of them did. And one of the issues is that there doesn't seem to be availability of what is called FGDs, these flue gas disposers that are there. Can you see 2 questions? One, clean coal technology. Do you see collaboration with Japan or anything? 2, in FGDs, can we diversify from, say, China and others? And is there scope to collaborate on this front?
Raj, you see that FGD, this emissions control looks at the whole range of emissions. Now, FGD is only one part of that. FGD is essential for those countries where the sulfur content in coal is high. The sulfur content in our coal is one of the lowest in the world. It is not really very necessary because our SO2 concentrations in the vicinity of plants are not very high. But nonetheless, we decided that we shall do it. So we are doing that. We are adding that FGD. But the other emission control mechanisms are there. So as I said, I'll share it with you. That what the survey has said. This is a survey by the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi, and they are independent. Right? They are independent. So we are very conscious of that. In fact, the couple of plants we shut down in Delhi because they had become old and they didn't have the space for adding that essential pollution control mechanisms. So we are very conscious about it.
And the technology part, do you think there could be collaboration with Japan on some of the thing, or you see other areas of collaboration?
You spoke about Delhi. You see, what needs to be done, of course, always, that's the professional approach always is to see as to what the composition of the the pollutants is and where it is coming from. That analysis has to be done. Now, if you look at the analysis which is available in the open domain, analysis of the pollutants in Delhi, a large quantum of the pollutants are because of our vehicular traffic. So we need to electrify very quickly our mobility. A large quantum of our composition of the pollutants which are burdening us in Delhi. The second largest, of course, is the dust. We need to switch over from manual cleaning to vacuum cleaning. Instead of, people using brooms to, they only sort of throw more dust than they clean. And part, of course, comes from industrial. As far as our contribution is concerned, I don't think that our contribution is really very much. It would be not more than a contribution of the thermal power plants, because whatever thermal power plants are here, they are very well abated. So our contribution not be more than what 7-8%.
RK Singh Saab, there is another criticism which environmentalists make is about the life extension given to the 39 gigawatt of your, those power plants which were about to retire. And, you have your own logics that, they provide you cheaper electricity. But, that requires investments also to upgrade them and so...
Unless, actually, the focus is, why we have done it is because we are optimistic. Now, we are optimistic because we feel that sooner or later, storage will become viable. You see, you can't phase out fossil fuels unless you have nuclear, because you need round-the-clock renewable energy, or the storage becomes viable. So that's the story. You see, all these people, the developed countries who talk very glibly about, the energy transition, etc., they do not speak the full facts to you, and therefore they don't speak in front of me. They're generally on the defensive. They really don't speak the full facts to you. You can't have energy transition unless storage is viable. Now, these people have been talking about, these developed countries have been talking about energy transition right since Kyoto, and they've done nothing about it. If they were serious about it, they would have invested in storage. The total storage manufacturing capacity in the world is just about 24 gigawatts or something like that. When I came out with why is storage essential? Because the sun shines only during the day. You need power at night as well. The wind blows at some times, it doesn't blow at other times. So without storage, you don't have round-the-clock renewable energy. If you don't have round-the-clock energy, you can't function. So then you either have coal or gas or nuclear or whatever. That's plain and simple. That's the plain and simple fact of it. Now, we have coal, we use coal. Other countries have gas, they use gas. Some countries have shale, they use shale. Some countries use heavy oils, whose pollutants are more than the coal. I mean, the natural gas has more methane emissions associated with it than coal. And methane is about 80 times more dangerous than carbon dioxide. 80 times more dangerous than carbon dioxide. These are problems they won't tell you about it. So they talk about energy transition. We are a leader in energy transition, but that won't meet the requirement. So you need thermal power. But we are optimistic. We are optimistic that we are going to add to the volumes. We are optimistic that the price of storage will come down. Why? Because we believe that we had, we had a PLI for storage, production linked incentive for storage. We are setting up storage manufacturing capacities. I am also having bids for acquiring storage capacities. I had a bid for about 1,000 megawatt hours of storage, which was one of the largest bids in the world. The rate came to 10 rupees per kilowatt hour. 2.5 rupees for making 1 unit of electricity, 10 rupees for storing it for one hour. Just imagine. So we believe that in time, as we add volumes and as the world adds volumes for storage, and as the volumes increase, the prices will come down. So that's why we are not going in. We want to extend the life of these plants so that I don't have to replace them with new plants. A new plant will last another 40 years. Now, I believe that in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe 10 years, the price of storage would have come down such that we can have round-the-clock renewable energy, in which case these plants I can close. That's why life extension.
Just since you mentioned storage, one of the key things, whether in solar, wind, is the fact of storage. And you mentioned also, at night times we don't get it, we need to store this energy and then disperse the excess energy that is there. Since we're in India-Japan Forum, what are the collaborations you think India could work with Japan on storage, batteries and others, as well as on solar and wind? Where can we synergize each other, share our, in the partnership that we have?
That's one of the items which has been included in the Clean Energy Partnership, storage. So this we intend to take forward. Again, your companies won't find a bigger market outside of China. So we are again coming out with a production linked incentive for setting up storage manufacturing here. So let your companies come and compete. We will have storage capacity. I mean, we are not going to sort of compromise with that. We'll have storage manufacturing capacities in our country, and your companies are welcome to bid. You see, I mean, India is a huge, huge country, and for us, supply chain issues are critical. Right now, 80%, 90%, in fact, 88% to be precise, of the storage is manufactured in one country. Where? China.
Yep.
90% of the lithium processing is located in one country. Where? China. They have tied up almost 80% of the lithium resources around the world. So we are in discussions with our partner countries, Quad, etc., to tie up lithium resources there. I mean, God has been kind. We have found some lithium in our country. These are minerals for the future: lithium, cobalt, etc. And the supply chain for these has been skewed. Because some country went and sort of preempted the rest of the world. But supply chain issues have come to the fore, and we are very careful with that. And that's why Make in India.
And therefore, to take that forward, India has bid for this China +1 in terms of the supply chains across the world. Where do you see our playing a role, since we're going to be one of the largest renewable energy things? How can we provide, not just take from the world, but provide for the world?
Yes. In fact, we've already started exporting efficient modules to the United States. We are we are emerging as one of the bigger exporters of efficient solar modules to the United States. We are going to have a capacity of 100 gigawatts of manufacturing capacity in the solar cells and modules. And out of that, only about 40-50 gigawatts will be required by us. The remaining 40-50 is for our friends. Yeah. And India has always been a reliable partner, will always be a reliable partner, will always be a reliable country from where you can source your requirements. Store this or hydrogen, electrolyzers. We are going to come out with a bid for setting up manufacturing capacity for electrolyzers. Again, companies from all over the world are welcome.
So if the sun rises in Japan, the sun can set here and we can do the rest on this. Anilesh?
So most of the global investors, they want reliable electricity, and they always see, as many of the states where they want to set up things, electricity is as a major component, and we all know that you have done execution of the reforms. Help us in understanding that, how do you see, Discom behaving in next 5 years? And especially, are they stabilized? Are their finances stabilized?
Yes.
Or their projections stabilized? What is your view on this?
Thank you, Anilesh. I mean, you do the focus on a very critical thing. Now, so what has happened? Let me tell you what has happened. What has happened is that in 2015, the availability of power in rural areas was about 12 hours. Today, it is 22 hours. That includes agriculture. And incidentally, the supply to agriculture is restricted to 8 hours a day because, they need it for 8 hours a day. So 22 hours, from 12 hours to 22 hours in rural areas. In urban areas, 23.5 hours. We have made generators history. We have made inverters history. So by doing what? We added capacity, 190,000 odd megawatts. We connected the whole country into one grid, which can transfer 116,000 megawatts from one corner of the country to another. This is the largest single integrated grid in the world. And, we are adding, strengthening again and again by adding more and more green energy corridors, etc. And so we are enhancing the capacity. You won't get this anywhere. You apply for connectivity today, you will get connectivity within 60 days, 90 days. In other countries, you apply for connectivity. In the United States, you apply for connectivity, you will have to wait for 2.5 years, 3 years. In Europe, you will have to wait for 3 years. So that's how we made it. We made it more. So we make electricity enough. We transfer electricity. We strengthened the distribution systems by spending 2,10,000 crores. We added 3,000 new substations, upgraded almost about 4,000 substations. About 8.5 lakh circuit kilometers of HT lines, LT lines we added, and hundreds and thousands of transformers, additional transformers we've added around the country, and that's what's made this possible. Now the key point, which was what Anilesh mentioned, that was the key, and that is the viability of the distribution companies. The viability of the distribution companies, the viability of the power sector was shaky when I joined, absolutely shaky. You know, the outstanding dues of generation companies were in the region of almost about 135,000 crores. I mean, 1,35,000 crores. That was the outstanding dues. And you know, the CNC losses of the distribution companies were in the region of 23%. That was in 2014. Today, the AT&C losses have been brought down to about 15.5%. A reduction of 8%. That's the AT&C losses have been brought down. The outstanding dues of 1,35,000 crores has been pared down to 60,000 crores. And that's the legacy dues. The current payments are all up to date. So our discoms have become very viable. And that's why you will find that the shares of all our companies are going up. And and every generator is making huge profit. Every generator is making huge. So I mean, our shares are going higher and higher. And this will remain. Why? Because we have hardwired it. Now, if a distribution company does not pay for the power which it has drawn, its connectivity to the market gets automatically cut off. That's automatic. No human intervention. So nobody can intervene. If a state announces, like you know, some state announces 100 units free, 200 units free, they have to pay for it. The subsidy has to be paid, otherwise the subsidy will not be passed on. If a distribution company is making losses and they don't have a roadmap for reducing the losses subscribed to by the government, the state government has to sign on it, the cabinet has to pass it, and they have to file it with us, they will not be able to get any financing from REC and PFC. We have revised the prudential norms. And then we wrote to all the banks that revise your prudential norms for lending according to this. So, and then we also provided for some carrots. An additional borrowing space of 0.5% of the GDP if you are taking steps to reduce your losses. So carrot and stick, it has worked.
Excellent. I think we run out of time. So I'm just going to circle right back to India, Japan. And since you mentioned China and the way it has captured some of the key resources, do you see, since we are cutting down on China's exports, do you see Japan substituting a lot of that? Where do you see the potential for Japan to come in place of China, and we vice versa towards...
Japan is a close and valued partner. You see, our strategic interests coincide. Without missing any words, our strategic interests are common, absolutely common. They don't coincide, they are common. We have the same world view insofar as this region is concerned. So, for us, Japan is a valued friend, brother, whatever you call it. And we both face the same challenges. So, we are together. And the Japanese have always been very good, very friendly with us. They have always invested in India. Now, I am quite sure that their investments will increase. And as far as sourcing is concerned, I would expect as a close friend that Japan sort of sources its requirements from us rather than from other countries. You know, so other countries may be closer geographically, but I think we are closer insofar as interests are concerned.
And one final question we have, sir, which Analesh is also, is since we are in the midst of COP28, you're going to land up there, there's this global stock taking. What will be India's position over there when it looks at the commitments it's made as well as what it expects from the world?
You know, we have actually achieved our commitments, whatever commitments we made, well in advance. We are the only country which did that. For example, we had committed that we will reduce our emissions intensity by 33%, despite the fact that our emissions are one of the lowest. And we achieved that in 2019. Just imagine that. So again, we have upped our ambition. We've said that we will reduce our emissions intensity by 45% by 2030. We shall achieve that. We shall achieve that because we have programs for that. We have launched those programs, whether it is for the industry, which is Perform, Achieve, Trade. Now, that's a world-leading program, you know, in which we set targets for the industries, and if they overachieve, they get energy saving certificates. Now they'll get carbon credits, and if they underachieve, they have to pay a penalty or they have to buy ESCs. Now, that has resulted in a reduction of CO2 emissions by almost 107 tons million tons, 107 million tons per annum already. So we have programs like that. We have programs for efficient, appliances in the star rating program. That's our program.
We have India's met its commitments well
and
in
we'll
advance.
achieve.
But what do you expect from the rest? When you go there, what will be India's...
What we expect is very simple.
Big takeaway you want from there?
Raj, it's not only us. It's the rest of the world. It's the rest of the world. What the developed countries need to do, and this is the voice of the global south. This is the voice of the developing world. The developed countries are emitting at a faster pace than any other country. Their emissions are 3 times the global average. They need to bring down their emissions. Now let me give you a figure. Right. The total carbon dioxide load, which has caused this 1.1 rise in temperature, which has already happened, 80% of that has been contributed by the developed countries, whose population is 1/3. If you take 1/3 of the global population, they have contributed 80% of the legacy carbon dioxide load on the atmosphere.
So would you call
and
for
our contribution is only 3%, even though our population is 17%. So basically, even this 53 tons, which are gigatons, which are being spewed out every year, now 2/3 of that is coming from where? From developed countries. They need to bring down their emissions. That's the voice of the global south.
In the last COP27, one point. The last COP27, India had pushed, they were asking for a phase out of coal. We pushed and got a phase down.
That's a diversion, Raj.
That's right. But here, in terms of overall fossil fuels, are you going to push for a phase down of that or a phase out of fossil fuels?
My take is very simple, and that's what I have told all my interlocutors within our country and outside. My take is that let's not go into fuels or whatever. The end result is what we are looking at, as to how much you are emitting, right? Because it's the emissions which are causing the global rise in temperature. So if you are emitting at a certain rate, which is 3 times the global average, you need to bring down those emissions. How you bring it down, we shall leave to you. You can use CCUS, you can replace your fossil fuel feedstock with green feedstock. There are a number of ways. The end result which we are looking for from developed countries is, please bring down your emissions. That's what the dialogue has to be about.
These developed countries, they also control funds as well as access to technology. So are you also putting pressure on them that they should also ease out, the finances of...
We keep saying that. Unless we keep saying that. But now the situation has changed. We don't need funds for ourselves. I mean, thank the Lord, we are getting investments. I haven't had to ask anybody for funds. I'm getting investment. Now, but the other developing countries need funds. If you want Africa to transition, how can you expect Africa to transition? They don't even have access. You have 733 million people in Africa who don't have access to electricity. Can you believe it? And the world is not thinking about that. And the world is talking about energy transition. Talk about access. And they won't get access without money. And this is the developed countries who caused this global warming in the first place to contribute.
Mr. Singh, we have taken a lot of your time. Thank you very much for being speaking with candor. Let's give him a very warm round of applause on this. Thank you.